and welcome back to another video. My name is Kizzy and today I'm going to be doing my I'm going to be doing my January wrap up, and of course once again the cat is going crazy behind me, so apologies for the little scuffling sounds throughout the video. I do have quite a lot of uni books to go through as well, so I'll get through those at the beginning and get onto the better, more juicy books in the later half of the video. If you do want to skip, I'll put like a timestamp in the description box. But I have to say I did enjoy quite a lot of my uni books this month. They're all to do with ancient classics, ancient tragedy, that kind of juicy stuff. The first book that I read for my ancient tragedy, what's it called, module, is the Orestia by Asicles. I'm probably going to butcher all these names, so really sorry about that. But this is the only surviving trilogy of ancient tragedy. So if you don't know, ancient tragic plays, if that's the genre, were always written in trilogies, so they were always written in threes, kind of like how we have now 3 acts within one. It was, I think inspired by that. I don't actually know, like I could have just made that up from like GCSE English. I'm pretty sure my teacher said that. But this is the only surviving trilogy that we have. We've got a very little amount of ancient literature surviving. But this is made up of Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and Eumenides. So it follows the return of Agamemnon from the Trojan War, his murder by his wife and her lover, and then her son's revenge on killing the wife, or his mum at that point, and his lover, and then the kind of Furies condemning him or not condemning him, so kind of his trial, as you were, and kind of the creation of democracy in ancient Athens. So it is, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought the chorus in the Agamemnon was a little bit of a drag, so you have to kind of get through that to get to like the good stuff, but I actually quite liked the rest of it. The libation bearers especially was, I think, the best trilogy in it. I don't know what rating to give this. I find rating uni books really hard because it's not necessarily something I would choose to read, but I did really enjoy it, so maybe it's like a 3.5 stars, just because I wasn't a fan of the first and second trilogy, but the middle one actually was quite good. So for my course, we read the ancient classic and then we read like modern retellings of them, or modern adaptations, however you want to go. So the next one I read, it was an ebook, and that is Orestia by Robert Ick, and this was, I think, really good. I really enjoyed it. It follows a lot more kind of the mental health side of their son called Orestes. I'm so bad at remembering. And it also goes back to the original, so if you don't know why Clytemnestra murders Agamemnon, it's because at the beginning, or before the Trojan War begun, the gods took away all the wind for their ships to sail, so they couldn't sail to the Trojan War. And then there was a prophecy that the only way that they were going to get the wind back was for Agamemnon to sacrifice his daughter, Iphigenia, and so he does that. He tricks her to coming to where they are through the promise of Achilles marrying her, and then they sacrifice her. So that's why when he comes back, Clytemnestra is obviously wanting to kill him. So I think it's a very interesting story, and I actually quite like the myth of it, so I enjoy studying it. And I think the Robert Ick adaptation it has 4 parts. It has that part, and then the 3 remaining plays of this are put into just the sections. And I thought he did a really good job, and actually it was very interesting, and I would recommend it. It's the kind of play that I actually wish I'd seen. So that was very interesting. So the next Greek play that I read was Iphigenia at Audius, I think that's how you say it, by Euripides. He has 2 Iphigenia at I haven't read the second one, I think that is like later on in the timeline. But this is telling the story of Iphigenia being tricked into coming to where they are in the Trojan War, and Agamemnon's conflicting kind of moral... What? Whoa, Google! Oh, that really scared me. Oh, my heart's racing. This follows Agamemnon's kind of conflicting ideas on whether or not he should actually kill his daughter, and it definitely goes more into that. It's very more sympathetic towards him than I would say the Aeschylus was. So again, I actually quite enjoyed that. They're very short, so you can kind of like go through them. And then we had to read a retelling called Iphigenia in Orem, and this was by Neil Labute. This is very intense. It's a monologue of a guy just kind of sitting and talking about his like the event of his life where his daughter died, and it was powerful. Like, oh, I bet watching that would have been really uncomfortable. You really don't like him, he's not a very nice person. So I don't know what to rate these books. I don't know what to rate them. This is gonna be really bad, but I did enjoy them. I don't know. This is such a bad wrap up, sorry. But that is only 8 pages, so that's a very short play. Obviously it's just a monologue of just this one man speaking to the audience, speaking to you, so very intense but powerful. Okie dokie. The next and final uni book that I have to share with you is the Iliad by Homer. This is translated by Stanley Lombardo, and I actually really enjoy this translation. It's much more kind of easy to get into. I think it's very much modernized, and there's nothing wrong with modernizing the Iliad. So if you're kind of looking to get into reading the Iliad, I would definitely recommend this. It is quite expensive. I don't know how much. I think it was like $16.99, because it's not that readily available. Like, I don't think it'll be in your local bookstore. I think you will have to order it online. I got mine from Blackwell's, but it is very easy to get into. I found this much easier than the Robert Fagles, which is the other edition I've tried to read. I gave up on that one. Couldn't get through it, so yes. But the Iliad is a obviously Homeric poem or spoken poem, but this is like 492 pages long. They are split up into 24 books, chapters, and it is basically the story of the last year of the Trojan War, not to completion, but it's the story of Achilles and his rage, basically, as the first line will tell you. And he has a argument, I suppose, with Agamemnon, because one of Agamemnon's slave girls, concubines, that he has is the daughter of a priest of Apollo, and when the priest asks for her back, Agamemnon says no, so Apollo curses them and they have to give sister back, and it is Achilles that says Agamemnon has to give her up. So Agamemnon says, as punishment, I'm going to take your girl, Briseis, and then Achilles is like, well, I'm not going to fight in your war anymore. And then it all goes to crap, and then his friend goes out, and then shit goes down, and so Achilles ends up fighting again, and then, spoiler alert, but he dies. And that's basically the Iliad. But it is very interesting to study if you're at all into Homeric poetry. I think it gets better the more you study it, the more you read about it, the more interesting it becomes than just kind of reading it. It's one of those books, I think, when you read it, you have to really look into the passages and kind of see what it's saying. The thing with reading kind of like Homeric poetry is that you don't get a lot of emotional insights, because that's not how they told it. They told it externally, external reactions only. So yes, once you can understand how to kind of read it, I think it gets, but it's going crazy. I think it gets much better. So I've definitely enjoyed studying it much more than I necessarily would just reading it on its own. But don't let that put you off. If you're not studying Homeric poetry, you can still enjoy this. I'm just a bit basic and I can't really see the deeper level of things unless my teacher actually goes, no, this is what it means. So there you go. So getting on to the books I actually read my choice. We're going to continue with the Greek epic ancient theme and talk about some Greek retellings. What are you doing? He's going crazy. So the first retelling that I read is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. This is a reread for me, and it was better the second time around. If you follow me on Instagram, I rave about it. And it is just incredible. It's very raw, very emotional, very brutal in its depiction of what the reality, I think, of the war would be to these women who have been taken and captive and made to be these concubines in the camp of the Greek epic heroes. In the original, obviously this is a retelling of the Iliad. This is obviously just focusing mainly on the men and the war and the battle that they're fighting. But Pat Barker does an incredible job of taking the very small elements of women and their representation in the original and really expanding it and just kind of fleshing out the reality and what that life would have been like. But she has definitely taken what is there, used it and built upon it, and it's not like she just made something up and it's out of the blue. She's just done an incredible job. I would highly recommend this. Huge trigger warning, obviously, because it has a lot of sexual violence and it's not a nice necessarily read. It does make you feel uncomfortable, but her craft and writing just makes such an amazing, not amazing atmosphere, but is so incredible at giving that atmosphere that it's just incredible. Leo just run in circles. So the next retelling that I read was actually a collection of poetry, and this is by Nikita Jill. She is on Instagram. I think she started as a Tumblr Instagram poet and has now published quite a lot of books in the last few years. So this is Great Goddesses, Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters, and there are poems in this that I really like and poems in this that I don't necessarily agree with. And I think there are kind of things to talk about in it. It's my other book that I'm doing for my dissertation, so that's probably why I'm being more picky about it. But there are some beautiful lines. I have tabbed a lot in it, and there are just some, yeah, beautiful lines in there, and I would recommend it for like 80% of the poems in here, so that's pretty decent. So the next book that I have is Witch by Finbar Hawkins. This is, I don't know what genre, like if it's YA or adult, I don't know, but it is a beautiful book. The illustration is lovely. It does have small illustrations at each kind of chapter. If I show you, just like little kind of thematic things for the chapter. And this is written in quite a strange style. It is written in first person, and it is written as if the girl is speaking, so it is in colloquial kind of broken English. For that reason, it did take me a while to get into the writing style. I don't know if it drops off a little bit towards the end or I just got used to it, but I did find the end more fluent and easier to read. The storyline I think was good, and that was the thing that made me most interested in it, but there was just something a little bit lackluster about the rest of it. Like, I think it's a very interesting book. I don't know if it just wasn't what I was expected or something, but it was kind of told as if it was a fairy tale, so you don't have that kind of character development or relationships that you'd necessarily, I don't know, because I say this, but there were character relationships in it that were interesting. Don't know, there was just something about it that I didn't connect to and I didn't really get on with. So I am going to give this like a 3 stars. It just didn't hit the mark with me, but I feel like people will like it. It just doesn't, I don't know. I just wish there was maybe a little bit more content in there and a little bit more something. But this basically follows a girl who is the witness to her mother's death and murder by a bunch of witch hunters, and that spirals her on a journey to avenge her mother and basically kill and find and kill these witch hunters. But she has a little sister as well, which complicates things. She meets people along the road, and I think it didn't really get that interesting until like 3/4 of the way through to the last like 4th was the bit that I kind of sped through it. So it was just a little bit slow and just a little bit strange for me, I think. I don't know if that makes sense. Probably the worst review I've ever done of a book. So the final book that I have to share with you that I read in January of 2021, and that is The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which is actually a name for 2 writers, a pen name for 2 writers, which I can't think for the life of me of what they are. But this is quite a complex fantasy. The political system in it is entirely new, that I've never come across anything similar to it. It's not necessarily the best explained either, so for a lot of it I was a little bit confused. There are words in it as well that are made up, but it does have a glossary at the back, so if most of the words in there that I wanted to look up were in there, and it does have a list of the people in it and their kind of factions that they're in, so there are quite a lot of similar names and different names for the same people because they have titles and surnames, and it did get a bit confusing, and different people call different people different things. So if they're in the same rank, they call them something else to what a lower rank would call them. So it can get very confusing, and they'll be talking about the same person and you won't realise that until like a couple of pages later. So yes, I think it should have had a little bit more info dumping in it just for ease of reading. But this follows a girl who is kind of trying to do this big con con by getting in with the nobility, pretending to be their cousin or nephew or niece, and kind of just, I don't really know what her goal was. I'm assuming to get money, but that quickly became not the main plot of the book. She managed to con them pretty quickly, and then it's all, you know, something else, but I don't really know what the main plot of the book was. It didn't really have like a streamline thing, just things just happened. I think I didn't actually get it a lot of the time, which is why I'm not really being able to be very specific. I did enjoy it though, weirdly enough. Like, I did actually quite like it. I did like the characters. They did kill off my favourite character, which I hate in books, but they always do that because I always like the characters that are sympathetic, and so they kill them off. So that was a little bit of a bummer. Yes, I did like, there is like a kind of Robin Hood character that no one knows who he is, and discovering who he is was quite interesting. It was, I can't decide if I was disappointed or not by it, but I think that'll be interesting to see how it goes in the next book. And I think the main character was interesting. She needs a little bit more flaws perhaps to make her a little bit more interesting. I definitely think she had some, and her emotional state when something happened was quite interesting to witness, but I think, I don't know, I feel like the secondary characters were much better, like Vargo, who's basically just Kaz Becker from Brecker, I always say Becker, from Six of Crows. He's basically just him. He wears gloves, he doesn't like disease and touching things, and he has a cane and he's all dark and mysterious, so he's basically him, but in this book instead. So that was interesting, but I quite liked him as a character. I think his sister was more interesting than necessarily than the main character. So yes, there was definitely elements I liked about this book that made me really like it, but I feel like maybe I should reread it already just because I don't understand it fully. But that could be me. I'm not very good at picking up political systems, especially if they're not like info dumped to me and told to me really plainly. So that could just be me. I don't know. But I think I'm going to give it like a 4-star because I did actually really enjoy it. If I understood it, I feel like I'd have enjoyed it even more. So those are all the books that I read in February. No, why do I keep doing that? In January of 2021. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you would like to see more videos, then please subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated and I would love it. I really would. Sorry about the gremlin being really noisy in the background, and I shall see you in the next video very soon.